All right, hello. So yeah, I've been I've had a few days off now because it's Easter and kids are home, and I've been seeing these videos on YouTube popping up about engineers talking about how they're fed up with working with AI in the context of working with agents. And I've also personally pivoted a bit because even though it's exciting with something like Claude Code, CLI, to see how capable it is, and it is very capable. It just the experience as a person, an engineer, a builder, is just horrible. Like it's really, really bad. Like it's fascinating to see the technology doing its thing, but this is not how I want to work. I don't want to give a prompt and then 20 minutes later I have like 1,000 lines of code to review. I hate reviewing. It's super, super boring and it's exhausting. And I think we've jumped too far with abstraction. And there is something in between that we can do to still keep agents. Like agents are good for certain things, but also they shouldn't be used for everything. So the way I think about this, let's see if I can figure out how to draw this. So I'm gonna make a video on this project, like a proper introduction, but this is me just ranting about current state, and I'll demo it and all that. But first I just want to rant about where this is coming from. So imagine you have your project, right? Some kind of project. And when you go into agent mode, like Claude Code CLI, that sits in front of your project, right? This is where you're working from. And it's incredibly capable. Like it can go in and just work on any files and whatever it might be. Sorry, I have something, whatever. Sorry. Let me move. Oh, now it got like super bright. Yeah, whatever. So this is gonna work on your whole project, right? And this is slow, breaks, momentum, right? You're prompting it and then you sit and wait, maybe for a few seconds, maybe for a few minutes. And no insight. So when it's writing, even though you see the diffs, like you don't practically no insight, you just trust it to do its thing. No reduced decision. So even though you make a decision on what you want to build, Claude is making a lot of decisions on how to build it, right? And then you have like plan mode and all of this to kind of take back more decision making. But even that experience is horrible, right? Just sitting there, like creating this like big plan. Creating plans is boring. Like you just want to go in and code, right? And reduce ownership. So you don't own the code that's being produced. You'll never get ownership in it because you didn't actually produce the code. And this is a huge problem. But then there is this other perspective. And again, there are many, maybe we should list like the good things here. So good things is research. It's configuring, boilerplating. So setting up like the initial project, doing research in the code base, refactors, writing tests. There's a lot of things the agent, like project level, is really good at. And that's basically doing the boring stuff, right? But it shouldn't do the fun stuff, what makes you an actual engineer. So what you can rather do is you can have a project file. It doesn't need to be, let's just call it Claude Code. But then you can also go and you can have a project file. And this is not a new experience. Like in VS Code and Cursor and Windsurf and all of these, they have this inline prompting. The problem though is that it's incredibly slow. And the way I've been thinking about this is like, what if we took the experiences of what we learned about building out this, like not personally, but like as an ecosystem, as a community, everything we learned about like iterating on the agent, and then go back into this inline experience and see what we can do. Because the whole point of the inline experience working in a file is that it needs to be incredibly snappy. Like that's like, if it's not snappy, it's just not gonna work. And this is where like Copilot and they're just going at it the wrong way. It's a shitty experience. First of all, it's super slow, so you completely break out of it. You even see like the actual edits being applied, and then the agent is still working. Because I think they're actually using an agent behind the scenes. But this needs to be like completely seamless, as if it felt like you wrote the actual code. And it should feel like you're writing the code. Anyways, and there shouldn't be like any like accept and all that. It's like, it should feel like if you wrote it and you regretted it, you just undo it, right? Let's see. So I'm calling this project Claude Spark. And what it's not, so this is what it's not good at. To make that red. And what this is not good at is, basically a project level consideration. Well, that's not completely true. Working cross files, basically. It's bad at doing that. But what it's good at, oops. You'll have to excuse me, I haven't prepared anything. This is kind of me just talking straight from my brain, kind of prepping for an actual introduction. So it's bad at working cross files, but that's intentional, right? Quick feedback loop. And yeah, let's just, I don't want to write this now. But the point is that there's this line between here. That's incredibly, where's the line? Oh, isn't this, oh, it's 5, sorry. There's this line between here. That's incredibly difficult to define. And this is context. So on this side, like, how should I visualize this? Yeah, it's kind of hard to, yeah, let's see, project context. So the Claude Code has like an amazing way of collecting context. Yeah, wait, this is kind of weird to display it like this. Context size or context retrieval. I don't know. Let's just call it context for now. My point is that it's really, really hard to manage context. So for Claude Code, it can just go and search the code base and collect a shit ton of context, right? And you want to have like broad project level context. But that's also partly why it's so slow, right? Because it needs to retrieve all that context. While over here you want to have as specific context as possible. but it should still be beyond the file, right? You can't do anything within a file. And this is what's so impressive about like Windsurf, for example. They have this incredible architecture of making it feel instant, but still beyond the file, you have context. Yeah, maybe I should put like context behind here instead, like this. Yeah, because like what is the context? So for Claude Code, the context is the whole code base, right? It just actively goes and finds it. And with subagents, it can do that in parallel and all of this stuff, which is great. But here, you don't want to do that. You don't want an actual agent behind this experience because it's just way too slow. So you need more, okay, dynamic. Okay, this is what I want to say. Dynamic context, deterministic context. So what I mean about deterministic context is that from that file, there's a specific way of gathering context. Because if it's going to do it dynamically, it's just going to be too slow. So what I think like Windsurf did is like kind of crazy. They retrieve stuff from like the language server, and they do a lot of crazy stuff to find relevant context programmatically. And it works surprisingly well. But the point is that it will still not have the right context to really do things. So what I thought about is like, what if we took what we learned from using the file system through Claude Code, and especially the Claude MD file, and what if we use that as a way to create deterministic context for project files? And I have some interesting results on that. Let's see if I can go into demo mode here. So basically what we're seeing here, this is in the middle of an app where I'm playing. But you would still have Claude Code, right? But you wouldn't use it to implement anything. You would use it to write tests, like doing project level stuff. But when you actually want to go and implement something, you're actually going to do that in files like you used to do. But you're going to lean much more heavily on the Claude MD files to instruct how that is going to look like within each concept of your app. So for example, I have an app folder, and this is old stuff. Like I had a ton of iterations on this. So what this does is inside this app folder, and this is also a point, like if you just lean on completely generic context, deterministic context retrieval, like using the language server and even like looking at imports and stuff like that, it's not gonna understand exactly how you want to do things, and you still want to have specific rules of how to generate code. Because what if you have an empty file, right? It doesn't have much reference to understand how to write the code, and so on and so on. Anyways, so these Claude MD files, and you can create them using Claude Code, right? Because you want to go on the web, you might want to read some documentation from a library you use within that folder, and so on and so on. And this is what I got very inspired by Primogen, because he built something similar to this, but it was more skill-based. But I don't think skill-based is what you want. What do you mean, Adam? Oh, let me move this comment. Trad? Is that a what do you call it? Slurm? Slang? Anyway, so Primogen created this solution where you would have this inline prompting, but it was based on skill. So you always have to mention the skill. And I don't think that's the best experience. And also it had very much like, it was very slow, first of all. This is using Claude Haiku. And and also it has like using Claude MD as its way of understanding what its context is. Anyways, so I'm using like a completely new, like novel, not novel, I shouldn't say that, but like a library that the model hasn't been trained on. And it just documents how to use state, how to use actions and effects and stuff like that. But I could add anything here, right? If there was a special pattern I wanted to use, coding style, whatever it might be. So if I go in here now and I can, let's see, let me just remove everything. And I'm going to say, oh, traditional. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, I really loved our discussions, Adam, because I get very excited. I jump on the hype train. And even though I'm very excited about like where agents can go, like we're not like if I'm going to continue as an engineer, it's not going to be just prompting agents. That then all the fun is gone. Like like I shouldn't even say fun because that doesn't sound professional, but all meaning is lost for me. Like there's no meaning for me personally to engage in programming if everything is generated by an agent. And my only job is to just read through hundreds of lines of code because I don't even learn that way, right? I have to, like, humans have to use their body to encode knowledge in their brains. We don't learn by just reading. That's the whole thing. That's the problem with school, right? You're just reading a bunch of stuff. And that's nice for like an introduction to something. But if you actually want to learn it, you have to practice it. So anyway, so imagine now like there's no context here at all. But if I do, so the way I've set this up now is if I do Command I get this prompt. By the way, I would like to have this inline, but that's not possible with VS Code. But there is an experiment going on to add web views to inline in code, so that's going to be nice. And then if I do Command Shift I get Claude Code agent on the side here. But anyway, so add a count state. And you see like how, and again, like it's incredibly fast, right? That is key. Like if it's slower than this, then it's going to break the whole experience. The other thing is I'm not acknowledging anything. It just adds it. And then it just highlights what it actually did, which is the green here. But if I save that, then it's like confirmed, and that's fine. Because you want to see what it actually added, right? But you can see that it understood how to use enjoyment. Yeah, that's a good word, Adam. But you can see how it understood how to use this library, and that's because of the Claude MD file. But the way I think about this is that these Claude MD files will help, in this context, will help you organize your code better. So for example, if you're working with Firebase, which is a huge ass API surface, what you would do is that you would actually create a folder for working with Firebase, and you would create a Claude MD with the APIs that concerns your specific app. That's how I think about this. So let's play some more. I'm gonna, let me just, sorry, I should probably have prepped this a little bit better. We can generate this again. So another thing I've done is instead of you making selections and stuff to give context, I'm actually using I don't know what this is called. I guess it's called like range. Yeah. So you have these ranges in VS Code. So when I prompt at the point of a range collapse, so like by just having my cursor here, right? I'm indicating to the LLM that this is what I'm working on. This is what I intend to replace or update, I guess. Replace me, because that's how agents work, really. You give them some text and it just gives you all the new text, even though some of it is the same. Well, yeah, I guess that's an optimization thing as well. Anyways, the point is that the context I give the LLM is where my cursor is. So even though it gets all the file contents, it gets deterministic, the related Claude MD in the closest folder going up. It also knows that I'm interested in this block. So if I have my cursor here, it knows that I'm talking about this block, right? But this block is just one line. So if I wanted to add something to the component, I will put my cursor up here to indicate that I want to add something to this function, right? But if I just want to do something to the hello here, for example, I would just put my cursor down here. So state hello world instead. So that's the collapsing part. But it can still, like, if it needs to import something, it will still make those edits, right? So this is just about like giving the LLM context, like meaning to your prompt is, okay, what code am I actually looking at? So so let's look at this Claude MD file. So this Claude MD file describes that in this folder, we're just going to create components, but it's not going to have any styling in it. I don't want to do that because I have a UI set of UI components that does the actual styling. And then I'm saying my UI components are available at this folder, and it has a glob. So it says that these files are my UI components. And then I do the same for using application state. Oh, sorry. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. So another interesting thing is that I'm using like this like exotic state management thing where I have like one main hook, which is use app. And then, so like, how should I put this? So if you look at this state, it just exports count, right? So how do you connect the dots, even as a human? Like, how do you connect the dots between that and using it in a component? That's really hard to infer. So I'm describing how that works. So you import use app, and then I say this hook exposes app.state and app.actions. And then I describe that the state is defined at this file. And this is how state is consumed. So I'm just describing how it works. And this is would be useful for a human as well, right? And before I forget, the nice thing about doing this is that this is also going to be picked up by the agent. So if you're doing broader like refactors or writing tests and stuff, the agent is also going to use these Claude MD files. But it's dynamic, right? Based on what folders it's accessing and stuff. Well, here it's deterministic because it's based on the file you're working with. And then I have this like really weird, the actions have this like special context on the action, but when you're consuming it in a component, it doesn't have that, you don't pass that argument to it. Like this is very exotic APIs, but the point is that we can just describe it, how it actually works. So if I were to go in here and say something like, oh, and then finally, yeah, sorry, I skipped that. And the UI components are available here. So what I mean to say is that when I make these references to other paths in the code, then that is also going to be loaded. So when I work in this file, the behind the scenes, it's going to find the closest Claude MD file. And then within that Claude MD file, it's going to find other references. And you can say that, oh shit, it's actually going to load all the code of all the state, all the actions, and all the UI elements and everything. Yes, it's going to do that. But the point is that you control the context. And these LLMs are incredibly fast. The reason we feel they're so slow is because we use them through something like Claude Code, where it goes and explores a lot of, it's because of the dynamic context retrieval, basically. But when it's deterministic, it's much, much faster. And then, what was the final thing? Yeah, and the final thing is that we're heavily leaning on system prompt caching. So the Claude MD file, the extended retrieval by reference, all of this is put into an actual system prompt. So as you keep working in these files, that system prompt is going to be like the same, and that's going to be cached at Anthropic. So of course, if you make a change to a state file or you make a change to a UI component, that's going to break the cache. But the point is that as long as that you don't make those kinds of changes, it's going to be incredibly fast, and it is fast by even not having that cache. So anyways, I'm rambling, sorry. It's just me having a lot of thoughts. Let's try to do something. So I can say like, what should we do? Put the count, use the count state. And did I have actions here? Yeah, I have increment and decrement, sorry. So we can go, for example, add count. And the point is, it's going to be minimal threshold to move from manually coding to using natural language for coding. And I've done so many iterations on like, how the hell are you going to use, what is the experience of using natural language for actual coding, not for like prompting an agent to do some coding, but actually coding. So use count state and implement increment or with increment and decrement patterns. And again, you can see like it doesn't have any context, but because it has the Claude MD file, it knows how to use state in this specific project. It knows about the UI components. It knows that it should use them as opposed to writing styling inside here, and so on and so on. And now we can see also, if I go and say like larger gap, like it's super, super fast, which is pretty awesome. So what I feel like I kind of nailed with this experience is how incredibly fast it is. And also let's look at where is it? Claude Spark. So here we can also see how much time it takes. It takes about a second. The last time you can see the input tokens, output tokens, the cost. It's not using the cache yet because I just don't have enough system prompt content, but still it's incredibly fast. It's like it's fast enough. That's the point. Like I like the experience of this. It feels like I'm not losing my focus. And I still have the possibility to like write code directly in here and all the things. And then, for example, for UI, I have this Claude MD file that describes what are these UI components. And basically, I just gave it like some Tailwind example and asked it to extract information about the general styling there. And this is, of course, used when I want to build a new UI component. So I asked it to build a box, blah, blah, blah. And again, I can add any like opinions about exactly how these UI components should be built. And so on and so on. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a really nice experience because it's so short. It's such a low threshold between, okay, this is boring. Please fix this for me. Or I want to take control and see how we're going to do this. And then you would like, if you want to write some tests, you could then just jump into Claude on the side and like write some tests for this. And the cool thing is that if you inline Claude in VS Code here, it has the context of the file. So it's like, it's about not losing focus. Yeah, something like that. But what I thought we could do here is I'm gonna actually delete everything here. Let's remove that, remove that, remove that. And let us just try to, yeah, let's delete everything. And then we're gonna imagine that we're creating this new project. Yeah, exactly. So I did try, that's a good point. I didn't mention that. I did try some other models, also open source models, but they were they were so slow for some reason. Like I tried, what was this? Inference Lab or something. I tried Fireworks, but it was super slow. So Haiku is incredibly fast. I was surprised that it actually worked. So, and that's also why I guess this is more of an attention thing, because that's the important thing for me. Is like, I think this is an important reflection that people should have, like standing on the shoulders of Primergen and like his demo. And all the, yeah, and by calling it like Claude Spark, it's using Haiku. It integrates super nicely with Claude code and everything. But yeah, I do think it could be even faster using like an open source model. But the experience becomes more complex because it's not like, okay, you're already using Claude, just put an API key into this extension and then you have an extended experience kind of thing. But yeah, it's a good point. And there's probably other things that can be done here. Like I was exploring how to, instead of like reading the files, I would only extract the types from the files, but that would be TypeScript specific. It's way more complex, so I didn't do that. But anyways, so let's try set up a Vite project with React, TypeScript, Tailwind CSS, and Rask UI IO framework. So this is also exciting, Adam, is that now it makes sense for me to use Rask UI because of these Claude MD files, which is so bound to this experience, is that you can just describe how to use it. So you can have a hooks folder where you describe what hooks is available in Rask UI, right? And then you have your components folder where you describe, okay, you have your use state hook, for example, or whatever hooks, or you reference your hooks, I should say. But you can also say, don't inline any Rask UI hooks, like native hooks and stuff like that. Good question. So I don't think it, let's actually ask it about this. Yeah, I was asking it about the. So we're using ephemeral caching. It's built dynamically. So I was asking because I'm not sure when the cache breaks. Well, I know the cache breaks if the system prompt changes, but I wonder if you can have multiple system prompts. A recent cache entry, yeah, it's a hit. Not per model, not per 5 minutes. Okay, yeah. So you have 5 minute cache. Um, yeah. So rapid edits in the same workspace. Um, yeah. Yeah, and up to 85% reduction in cache portions, which is pretty crazy. Please update the with details on how caching works. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's the good thing about. I think what's good about agents is that they learn by like just looking at code, so it automatically like gets it, but you never know what context it retrieves. Like that's the thing about agents. It's like they're so good at context retrieval, but you never know the exact context they are going to retrieve. Um, and and that's fine for an agent, I think, because you kind of at project level, there's like you're more. I would state that you're more. What's it called? Um, you're more. It's more okay to make mistakes because it's a project level. But if you're in a file, like I showed you, just adding that initial state, like if it doesn't get that right, you're completely like this isn't working. So it has to be much more deterministic at a file level than what it is at a project level. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. But that's cool to hear still. Um, okay, cool. What were we gonna ask it? You asked something. Oh, so currently we need to use Claude or Anthropic API key here. Is there some way we could use the Claude code, existing Claude code, um, on the user's machine or their subscription somehow? Basically, how would how would we integrate with the subscription if possible? Okay, so while it's doing that, let's. Is it? I haven't been here for a while. RaskUI.io. Yeah. Cool. So again, like this is perfect agent work, right? Oh, they didn't have a reference to. Yeah, hopefully it ignores that. Do, 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 do. Let's see what it makes out of this. Yeah, I also wanted it to create like a. Maybe we can go here. I have Claude all over the. I have a project called Claude Spark. I need an SVG representing a logo. Can you create something for me? Something that resembles the Claude logo, but is more of a Spark. Yeah, so one thing is I'm pretty confident that you could like, and you can even run Claude code. Like you can just run the Claude process or binary, and you can do inline prompting there, and you can even stream JSON out. So you could do something like that, but we can't run the actual agent harness. That's what's going to make it slow. So we just want to make the actual haiku traditional completion request to the API. And we also want to control the system prompt and the system prompt caching and all of that. So I'm not sure that you could actually, like we can't actually use Claude Code for it. Yeah, there's no way to piggyback on users' Claude subscription on Claude. Yeah, and I don't think it's allowed even. That's the thing. Keep requiring an API key. But what I hope happens, like this is why I'm branding it as Claude Spark, is because I want Anthropic to build this. I want them to extend their VS Code extension to have this inline helper that, like, and that's what I think is the synergy here, is that if you have an incentive to write these Claude MD files, it's going to make everything so much better. It's going to make your coding experience better because you just have this deterministic context that you set up for it, making it incredibly fast, but with the exact context needed to operate in the files. But then that's going to be super valuable context for the agent when you actually use the agent as well. Proxy through your own support and then use a custom URL. As I said, you could shell out. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Claude print, which would use the user's Claude code off. Yeah, but that's, you lose fine-grained control over model tool definitions. Yeah, that's a no-go. But yeah, that's kind of my goal here, is to showcase something that Anthropic would build. Wow, that took a long time. Anyways, let's see it set up something here. Yeah, and it immediately makes some mistakes here, which is fine. Which is definitely fine. We are going to set up our own system here. So we're going to have our components. We're going to have, yeah, let's drop the UI components for this, but we're going to have some hooks. And we're going to have a Claude MD file here. And we're going to have a Claude MD file here. And let's move this in here. Let's not have any. Yeah, but you can just do simple hello world, simple tailwind styled hello world title. Look at that, that's beautiful. And then in our main file, yeah, oh, index CSS. Why is that? Yeah, whatever. Cool. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna do a new chat here. We're gonna go to the hooks, and I'm gonna tell it to please go to https rask UI and write guides on how to use the hooks. It's probably gonna create like too much here, but this is basically how I imagine it. It's like the Claude MD files typically needs external resources, And even though you can use the inline helper for this, the inline helper doesn't like allow you to paste a bunch of context. Like you could technically do it, but I don't think it makes sense. And it can't search on the web and do stuff like that. But that's why you have the agent. So you can do stuff like that. Yeah, let's see what it comes up with here. And then we're going to try to play with it and see. And I think this is the thing that gets lost on most people, is that like having a context that like or I should put it like this: the models are trained on a lot of libraries, but it's trained on information that goes through many years, many different versions. You really, really, really want to have a description on how you want to use different libraries. The constraints of like what parts of it do you want to use, how do you use them so you actually have the updated stuff. And it just makes the agent and the inline thing so much smarter. And it becomes like a joy to use it. And I think the big question for me is still with this, like I feel like I nailed the experience. Of course I have to use it a lot more to really say something about that, but it's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of like trying to solve the engineering crisis of like looking into the void of Claude Code CLI. But I'm curious how fast it is as the context grows. Let's see. Yeah, this is nice, right? I wonder if it got all of them. Anyways, that's great. So what we're going to do now is we have that thing. What are we going to do? Oh, yeah. Write this as only using hooks, not using it in actual components. Sorry. Cool. And then when it's done doing that, we're going to go over here and we're going to describe what are we going to describe? Like, and it all makes so much sense. Like the effort of actually describing what your app is at a higher abstraction. Like, what are the tools you're using to build this app? Makes so much sense. Not only for someone jumping into the project, but just making the output more what you expect it to be, and describing the design guidelines and everything. Okay. Hæ? Er det godteri mer?
Ja.
Takk.
Kjente. Det er godteri.
Oi, tusen takk.
Og her er
Du kan få en. Skal du ha en kanin?
en.
Jeg er snart ferdig, Oskar. Ok?
Pappa,
Ja.
hva er det ferdig?
Hæ?
Hva er det som du tok nøye mot?
Ja da, det er greit det. Anyways, let's see here. So, okay, so it wrote it more as, okay, but it wrote it like without, okay. but actually put them into hooks like function use state, or not use state, use foo, const foo equals use, like that kind of format. I wish I could. Can I like jump into a different file and then run a session there? I don't think. Gick det bra, Sky? Det går bra.
De var så goda.
Ja, vad är det goda?
De var supergoda.
Men du, kan jeg være snill få lov å gjøre meg ferdig? Jeg holder på å streame, skjønner du. Let's see. So you can't do this inline window. Oh, you mean the actual experience? No, you can't do that right now. This is like a first class experience of the chat integration. But I think this is what is experimental. This is like a web view in the chat. In the code. So it's coming, and that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Pappa, nå får jeg just på godteri.
Får du det?
Ja. Du så ordet. Og jeg vil den.
Men du, kan jeg få lov til å gjøre meg snart ferdig? Men du, ikke spis opp godteriet mitt, da.
Ikke alt da.
Men du, du kjøpte jo ditt eget.
Nei, jeg skal kjøpe nå. Det er deilig greit.
And export all of them. Sorry for eating candy up close to the microphone. But even things like this, like they're just a never destructure thing, which is special to this library, right? We can. And what is the state of inline web using code for VS Code extensions? I believe it is a beta experimental thing. Okay, cool. I think. And they all need to return something. Like the hooks has to expose. Like the hooks has to expose something.
Du må ta den og spise så kan du også det.
Okay, tak.
Det er godt.
Yeah, it's gonna take some time to prune this. Like, you wanna move, use ref. Use catch error, create context. We don't want that to be part of hooks, but sorry, I'm eating candy again. Sorry. Let's see here. What do we want to move? Or we can do that later. Okay, but I think this is fine. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. That's not that much context, which is great. So now we can move in here. Use HTTPS Rask UI.io to describe how to create components, create context, the router, catching errors, and using refs. Things that relate to actual components. Well, I shouldn't say that. But I guess what we're doing now is the thing I'm most concerned about. It's like, this is documentation, and documentation isn't fun either. So I do wonder if there's like the thing is that you just can't go in and start using it. That's the problem. And maybe that's a big problem. I don't know. That's something that we have to figure out, but create context, the router, catching errors, and using refs. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But what we're gonna do, at least when we're done with this, is to see what happens when we start creating some stuff. Yeah, it's a good question. I did some reflections on, like, what if it could automate it, right? So you start writing code, and then for every piece of code you write, it's gonna automatically update the related Claude MD file. But the problem is that it's very expensive. Like expensive in terms of like complexity, like on all factors, like complexity, cost, and everything. And you kind of lose control, and you expect it to sync. And maybe someone's not using the tool, so it doesn't sync, and you expect it to sync. So I think you have to be very deliberate about it, which you should be. Like, the thing is, like, if there's anything you should be very deliberate and explicit about, is how you want your code to be written. But it's easy to make that as an argument, because that's a type of thing that we always talk about, but we never actually do. We know it's important, but we never do it, kind of thing. So, but it's interesting. Like, that would be, as an experience, that would be better to allow you to just start implementing the first parts of it. And then it will, as you say, build up over time. So every time there's something new, you have to implement it. But then, yeah, that's interesting. What if you could, yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, exactly. But I think you're onto something, Adam, because what you could do is, like, so if I create the first hook, what if I could just, like, hit a shortcut, and that would update the sorry, that would update the related Claude MD automatically. So I choose a block of code and, like, hit Command I. I could just hit a block of code and do like Command Shift, whatever. And that would then be integrated into the related Claude MD file. And then it would have a pre-pended prompt, right? Use this code to update in general instructions. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And we could use the same. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, it could even be like a mode of. So if I do Command I, we're working with this file, but there could be like maybe I could hit something, and then it would maybe tab or something. It would flip the prompt to be like write to Claude MD file. Straks ferdig. Skal hjelpe deg. Bare si til han at det er din tur snart, at han må avslutte. Yeah, and so you kind of do Command I, and if I hit tab here, I can still prompt, right? And say, give some additional context of how I want it to update the Claude MD file. And it would have the context of the whole. Yeah, I really like this, Adam. We should try this. Because just going through this experience now of like pre-planning everything, like you can still do that if you want to, but that's like way too slow to get going. And I think it would also put you in this mindset that by default, in an empty file, it knows nothing. So you have to start implementing something, and then, as we just talked about, just like put your cursor on relevant code, give your additional context, and it's going to be understand that concept. Oh, I love this. Okay, let's let's see. There's no general inline web view in the editor. It remains unlocked for custom. You can't arbitrarily embed a web view. Yeah, inline chat API. Open request to expose. Yeah. Oh, it's closed. Oh, duplicate. Closed. I do not think this will happen in the next. Yeah, out of scope. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Okay, but let's implement our new thing. So Adam and me got an idea. I would love this experience. When doing Command plus I, it shows the prompt. I want to, it shows prompt. I want to hit tab to change the mode of the prompt. The new mode should target the related Claude MD file. To be edited. To be edited instead of the current file. Oh, I'm excited about this. The new mode should target the related Claude element to. It takes the current file as context, highlights the block, etc. exactly as normal. But it also needs to bring in the related. Well, it already has the related Claude MD file in the system prompt, but the edits goes to the Claude MD file. It should also open that Claude MD file, if not already, to highlight the changes made. Does this make sense? Do you have any questions? Yeah, let's do this. Because this is the thing, right? It's really, really hard to keep your Claude MD files up to date from an agent perspective. Because you don't write it. You just like, you don't like it. You're just so distant from it as a concept that you don't really take advantage of it. But here it becomes like right up in your face and you understand exactly why you want to use it. And again, it's going to really help the agent mode to do broader changes to the code base as well. Yeah, nearest one, walking up. Do not create. Oh. Nearest one, walking up. Do not create one. Rather game. And display the nearest one somewhere. Display the path to the nearest one. Content form and user rights pronoun. Section header with the file path. It is free form text. Doesn't support. Oh. Oh. Yeah, maybe it needs to be, but we already have Shift Command I for like the full agent experience. What should we do instead? Yes. How are we gonna open it? Does quick pick support the tab? How are we gonna do this? Yeah. Please discuss me before starting. Yeah, because we could have a new shortcut key that would just open the different version of that prompt input. Okay, the kids are starting to argue. I think I have to drop out. I'm gonna drop out and I'm gonna implement this, Adam, and then I'm gonna test it a little bit. And then I really think this is going to work. I think this is a really cool idea. It makes a lot of sense. And then I'm going to create like a more proper video kind of introducing the concept. Did we get a logo? Oh, that wasn't good. Okay, I'm going to iterate on the logo as well. Okay. But this was fantastic. I'm really excited about this. It feels really, really good to just like do Command I, write something, enter, and it's just there. And it feels almost, yeah, as I said, it doesn't feel instant, but it feels faster than if you would write it yourself without you actually like waiting for it, which is really great. And now with this mechanism, it makes so much sense because this mechanism is going to teach people how it yeah, it was a little bit too much flower power for the logo. But this is also going to teach people how like the deterministic mechanism that makes it so fast. Yeah, I love this. Okay, cool. Bye for now. Thanks again, Adam. And we'll speak soon.